Well, welcome, Carlos Portillo, man. Welcome to the show. Welcome
Good
to
be
CJ
here.
Knows.
Thanks for having me.
Man, you're dynamic, man. I saw that TED Talks thing of yours and promoting youth in our community and what needs to change. I think, it's a dream come true to meet a Latino, American, a guy that's wants to work with our youth and make our community better. That's what it should be all about.
Thanks for having me. I would say this is kind of outside my comfort zone, but one of the things that I always love to do is shine a light on these students that tend to be forgotten.
Awesome. I want to know a little bit about you first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into this realm, and where did you come from?
It actually, I would say, kind of points back to my mom. My mom was really big in church on doing missions and working with those. She worked a lot with homeless people. And one of the things is when we would walk, didn't matter what part of the street we were in, there was always a homeless person down the street that would say, "Miss Martha, that's Miss Martha. She helped me do this, this, and this." And that was my model of just my mom. She said, we don't hang out with the top people. We don't hang out with the rich or the famous. We hang out with the people that tend to be forgotten.
Now, your parents are immigrants, right?
Yeah.
Where are they from originally?
They're from Honduras.
Honduras.
Yeah.
And they come over when they were young or older, or?
They came separately. My mom came when she was almost preteen, and then my dad a little older in life. I don't know too much about his story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to ask. Maybe I should ask, but it sounds like your mom was a big influence in your life.
Yeah, and she kept moving me into this position in different areas of kind of stretching me out of my comfort zone. I remember my first job was actually through her. I volunteered and worked at a rehab facility. And so I was 17 administering drug tests and doing room checks and working with people that were, addicted to anywhere from heroin to alcohol. And that was kind of the moment I realized, man, I'm drawn to this. I want to help people.
I was, this Saturday, I was at the Space Center, Kennedy Space Center, and I was noticing all these astronauts that had lost their life, they were all like Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts. I mean, were you a Boy Scout or anything like that?
No.
What got you along this morality
path? My mom would
path?
never allow me to do that.
No? What is it? Was it the church or is it just your basis of your mom that got you focusing
I think
on
church was a part of it, but never really. It honestly was my mom.
Okay.
Like, I remember even if we didn't have money or whatever it was, even when we did have, one thing that my mom always enlisted in me is we help those less fortunate. And whether it was Thanksgiving, she would always buy a turkey and say, we're donating this. Christmas meals, we would do that. It was just something that my mom instilled into me.
Now, we just talked, and about all these problems we have in our system. We love to incarcerate people. I'm an attorney. I've won murder trials and worked on juvenile cases forever. I do personal injury now mostly. But I'm going to be honest with you. I've had a personal issue recently with a guy I loved, a guy I knew he was a young guy for years, his family, and he just, I thought he had changed. He had his issues with the criminal system, the kind of kids that you help. And I want your real take on this. And I agree with everything you said on the TED Talk about, the system, how it's skewed. But there's a part, I have people that I know that say, like, once you're a thief, you're always a thief. Once you're a pedophile, you're always a pedophile. Once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. You're not going to change. You may not drink, but you're still an alcoholic. You may not abuse little children, but you're still a pedophile. If you're a thief, you may not steal, but it's still within you to do that. And, it's that old saying of the scorpion, that he's wants to cross the river. He's talking to the frog, take me across. He goes, I ain't going to take you because you're going to sting me and we're going to die. He goes, well, why would you do that? I'm not going to do that because I'll die also. And then he goes, okay, I'll give you the ride. And then he stings him. And right before they go under, he goes, why do you do that? He goes, I'm a scorpion. It's my nature. When you help these children, and I know you're going to have some positive out, but is there a point where it's not going to help or they're too old? Or you understand where I'm going with this? Because there's a lot of people that believe that you can't change people.
It's a good question. I think my natural response is we put youth in a system that has zero to do with rehabilitation.
Right.
And so we tend to say, this is what we believe is going to work, and it never works. And so if you train someone in a certain way, they're going to come out that way. And so when we put a youth into the system that is not meant to encourage, grow, mature a student, they're going to leave with probably more tools and around more connections to work and do things that they shouldn't do.
All right. So we're going to get into that because I'm very curious of there's a certain age. I've been told that kindergarten is probably one of the most important times of your life, because that kindergarten teacher, that's when you're forming all your, the things that later help you as an adult.
I would say the thing that people tend to point at is the third grade reading level. And so if the third grade reading level in this area is low and a lot of kids can't read by that point, funding will actually go to local state departments for prison and even the public defenders, the probation officers, because they believe that there is a trend between students that aren't being trained in well or learning or education isn't high, and they arrest.
Would you say that if you're raised in a family that's stable and the father works, there's a father, there's a mother, that child is more likely to come out pretty good and be a good member of society? Or is it I'm going to tell you, I did murder trials, and I was curious, hey, why are these guys killing people? And I came away with the feeling, or the idea, at least from talking to people that were killing people, that they had no love as a child. They lacked love. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a mom to love them the way that I think I did. Maybe you did. Obviously you.
Yeah.
Is that part of it? The family unit not working that causes that government? It seems like in your TED Talk you're saying that it's a community that has to invest in the children.
I think it starts at the home.
Right.
And I think just feeling love, worth, valued, seen, noticed, named, I think that those matter. But when we look at the other side of it too, it's a child can have the greatest family in the world, but when they go into the neighborhood and the community has nothing for them, and they have nowhere to go, they begin to explore. And so we see it a lot, even in counties alongside us and cities alongside us, where there is no spaces for youth. Youth tend to get in trouble because there's nothing else to do.
So even if they have a good home, you think there's still danger?
I think the importance is that in one of the biggest things we always see, it's a tribe. We need a village to raise the children. And if there is no village outside of the parental figure in the family unit, I still think, youth are at risk.
Well, it seems like countries like Norway, Sweden, democratic socialist countries have very low prison rates. They don't, they don't do what we do. And it seems to work.
Look at the prison system there. I mean, they focus on rehabilitation. So when a person is in there, they're focusing a lot on the mental health. They're focusing a lot on the behavioral. They're focusing so much on what is going on here and how can we, make this person a better citizen in our community.
So you think our society is failing at that then?
I believe that, yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you think we have a problem here? Obviously, we throw the stats and we look at stats, but...
How long do I have?
You take as much as you want.
So one of the things that I tend to see is we have this knack of, hey, let's put a kid into a program and help them out. And so I work with youth that they are sentenced to a program, but because they're sentenced to a program, they're afraid that child is going to run away. And so they keep them at a detention center, incarceration, for a long period of time. I currently am working with kids at the local juvenile detention center that are serving anywhere between 30 to 130 days of dead time, which means it has nothing to do with their sentence. Waiting for a program stores to open because there's not enough program beds or space for people. So suddenly this kid is in there. He's in there for 4 to 5 months, waiting, not learning anything, not really getting any rehabilitation, just waiting for a program to open.
Is that because of the private prison industry, the way the contracts are, or what causes that?
There's just no programs available. Programs are shutting down for a lot of bad reasons, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of states aren't really pouring into the programs. And so you have these students waiting for the program. They're waiting anywhere from 1 to 4 months. Then they go to the program. The program is anywhere between 3 to 12 months. So you look at that, and the student makes a mistake, gets into a fight, there's an argument, there's an altercation, and they say, hey, we want to send this kid back. It could be month 4, the student's sent back to the detention center and is now waiting for another program.
When I was a young guy, a little kid, I remember I took a bouillon cube. It was in Dominican Republic. I'll never forget it. I must have been 4 or 5. My dad said, what is that? I said, I don't know. It was shiny. He made me take it back. I apologized. I gave it back, and then I got my tail kicked. I never stole a thing again.
Yeah.
There was a lot of kids when I was doing the juvenile defense stuff. The parents would always compensate or try to make excuses for the child's bad behavior. In other words, I thought that was the time. The reason I thought we had the juvenile system was that you weren't going to get a record. No, so the idea was that you're going to get slapped, you're going to learn your lesson, but we're not going to destroy your life. So when you move on as an adult and you learn your lesson, you'll stop that behavior. But it seemed like a lot of the family and in my opinion, or the reason why these kids were there, were defending them and not using it as a teaching way. Like there's a consequence for your bad behavior. Of course, I agree with you. There has to be substance abuse, help, counseling, everything. I mean, but do you think the parents have anything to do with this, or the culture or the ideas of youth today? I'm coming from a perspective of an older guy. But because you hear that, these should be more disciplined. We want, in the South, it's about locking people up. It's about penalty and, the Old Testament kind of mindset rather than the New Testament, if you will, in my opinion, that they want to punish rather than help and learn and teach.
And I think it's really easy to scapegoat and say, hey, it is the problem of the parent. And I've been in situations where I know the parent has caused a lot of trauma on this youth. I've been in many situations working with teenagers and think, man, if only the mom did this. But the reality is we also see kids who dad's not in the picture, mom's working 2 to 3 jobs, is not there in the home, the child is raising 3 other kids and can't focus on school because he is now a caretaker.
Why is it my problem? Why should it be my problem? Why is it my money that has to go to fix the problems of somebody else? They're having children that they shouldn't, or whatever. That's the other argument always I hear. Why should we pay for you having kids? Why are you having kids when you can't afford them? Why are you having children when you can't take care of them?
I guess the big question is, do you view them as valuable, as important? Do you believe that if there is a student out there, a young person out there, that can change the trajectory of our community, of our state, of our world, wouldn't you take a chance on them?
It makes sense, but the reality is so many people against abortion, but then they don't care about life. They're pro-life, but they're not really pro-life, are they?
And so you look at it this way, though. I love taking the chances on these kids. And these kids may curse me out the first moment I see them. They may give me the cold shoulder. Heck, I've had students slam me the first time I've met them. But these are the same kids now that would hug me, that would embrace me, and that would say, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for you taking a chance on me.
I know I guess you're a minister as well, technically, are you?
I used to be a pastor, yeah.
Okay. How much of it is faith-based versus this love that you're projecting in support of children? I mean, I know you've probably, I don't know you, but I imagine faith and religion, and faith anyway, is a very strong component of your life. How much of that is important to the development of a child versus, let's say, an atheist that follows the program that you have? Is there a difference? Or
a lot of the kids we work with aren't faith-based. They have no inkling towards religion. For me, faith has always been important. It's been a big part of my life, and I always thought, man, it helped me get out of trouble and to not do certain things. But the reality is I've worked with kids that have no desire to even talk about God, but they have a desire for more. They have a desire for purpose. They have a desire to just work and do something that they believe can bring worth into their community. I mean, you talk to any single student, and you will ask them, what is your biggest passion, your dream, your desire? And they'll say, to get my family out of this mess, to bring my people out of this trouble. And they're the revolutionaries. They're the ones that are changing and going to change.
Henry, I'd like to hear from you. What do you got for Carlos?
I don't know. Carlos, we met 5-6 years ago, I guess, and I was impressed with Carlos from the start. And some people just, they command your attention when they get a chance to speak in front of you. And that was the case with Carlos, but I got to know him personally too, and what you see is what you get there. But as I was listening to the talk, and I've got some other questions too, but you had some discussion there about family, and of course you talked about your mother and how much she meant to you and means to you, and how she sort of got you on this road of compassion. But we hear so much she's a single mother, correct? And she's the linchpin of the household, and she's got to pay the bills and everything else. Did you ever talk to her about that part? Did she ever express, the tiredness or anything that you wanted to try and help her?
The interesting part about that, and I think we might have some similarities there, is my mom was the rock of the family. And so one of the things that I didn't see her ever do was complain. And that was enough of a nonverbal cue for me to say, I want to do as best as I can for her because she did so much for me.
Yeah, but I've always wondered, a single family, a mother the women and men are different, even if we don't want to believe that we are.
Yeah.
And she has to take the role of dad, maybe in some forms, of discipline and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wondered if some of the problems with youth is that you have a lot of families where the mom is the center and everything and works and does everything and is loving, but yet sometimes has to be a little bit stern. I mean, do you find that?
I see it a lot. That I think, and I will always go back to the comment. I think raising children is a community job.
Okay.
It is definitely, the parents' responsibility. And I think in a lot of times we have a community of kids that are raised by single parents. And I believe it is our right to help and jump in.
Did you have that as a young person?
I was
community?
Yes.
Well, I know you had your mom, but I mean, did you have the community? Did you have family, other members? Did you have the community as a whole or programs that helped you?
I believe, and I firmly believe this, that there is no such thing as a self-made person, especially someone who says that they are successful. There's no self-made success story. And so for me, I would view myself and my success as I am happy with my life. And I enjoy what I do. And nothing I did was on my own accord. Nothing that I did was because I woke up one day and said, I'm going to do it. It's because people dragged me along every step of the way. And
you make total sense. I meet these guys that say, I made it on my own. I'm a businessman. I made all this money. Nobody helped me. But you're in a country that has great infrastructure, a postal system that, no, we all are given something. We're not on an equal plane and an equal, level, are we?
No.
But
do you ever see yourself in the kids you help?
It's interesting. I don't have a record. I had teen court when I was a student because I got into a really bad fight. And I grew up in Tampa. There was really heavy gang affiliation and all that. And I just think, man, if it wasn't for the people that were around me, my brothers that would enlist fear if I did a mistake or did something wrong, or my mom that I didn't want to disappoint.
How many siblings?
I have 3 older brothers. And if I didn't have them, I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my family and all that, I would easily have fallen, I'm sure, into some of that mess that my kids run with right now.
So what do you see here in our system, let's say Manatee County, Sarasota counties, or anywhere in Florida? I mean, what is the problem? What can we do? What are the issues and what can we do?
Yeah, I believe we focus so much on intervention. So what happens when the student gets arrested? Okay, hey, we're there. And that's me too. I focus a lot on intervention, like how can we help this kid get out? What does this kid need? What are the resources this child needs? I believe the focus needs to be on prevention. And I don't know and I don't believe we have enough preventative programs for the youth that may have been part of that 3rd grade literacy rate or part of that, single family households or poverty lines or any kind of, youth that looks like they're going to fall into that school to prison pipeline. I believe it needs to happen before and not after the arrest.
I talked to a lot of kids, children, Latino children in particular, and I was saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember one said, I want to work in a restaurant. Not I want to own the restaurant.
Yeah.
You don't ever hear, you hear some basic things, but you don't hear I want to be president. I want to be a congressman. I want to have my own business and be the owner of my business. Is it more inspirational stuff that's missing today? You're working with the children. I mean, that the self-belief, I always believe that if the most important thing you can do to a child is give them self-belief that you're a strong individual that can be anything you want. Yeah. You just have to work at it and believe in it. Yeah. And it seems like to me, that's what I saw missing quite a bit, even from years ago, and I don't think it's changed much. What's your opinion?
So I go to the Juvenile Detention Center a lot, and one of the things that I always do is ask them, what do you want to do? How do you get out of this?
Right.
And they say they don't know. They think they're going to go back and do the same things they've always done. They may talk about a menial job or whatever it is, and I just ask them, what is your dream big? If money wasn't an option, what would you do? And then suddenly, things begin to change. And so I feel like a big part of my job is to look them in their eyes, and I look them right in the eyes, and I just tell them, you can succeed, but you can't do it alone. Let us help you. And we've seen youth succeed and do things that they could not believe that they can do, whether it was managing at a big hotel chain or, finishing college or getting good grades. And it takes that self-belief to say, I have people that are on my side, that are behind me, in front of me, setting the way, paving the way in front of me.
They believe in me.
And they believe in me, and they're going to push me over there. I think we live in a community where they've seen generations of people live in poverty, and they think, how am I going to get out of this? And the moment that the adversity hits on their dream, I think they tend to back away in anxiety and say, I can't do this.
I don't think you have to teach people. They need to have the the desire to learn. That's the first step, right? You know, you can talk at me all you want, but I want to have that desire to want to learn it. If we could put in the mind, I mean, churches, if the pastor and the priest does the right thing, can be amazing. If they teach the right thing, instead of letting, in my opinion, Jesus resolve all your problems, ask Jesus for the strength for you to resolve it, ask Jesus for the self-belief that you can achieve something, that you're worth something, that you have a place. And if we do that at every level, the child on its own, on her own or his own, will achieve what they need to.
I want to jump in just for a second because CJ said something I get right before that. I want to get your opinion. He said, you got to want to learn. Have you met any kids that were in a house where nobody learned?
Oh, yeah. I'm working with kids right now that don't have parents that have maybe even a high school degree or diploma. I'm working with kids that parents have immigrated here, have no formal education. They're just working, and they're just trying to survive.
Well, we know the kids that they graduate high school, parents say, great, now go to work. How about college? How about, following your dream?
Do you have to learn how to want to learn?
I think there's an interesting question that we like to ask, and it's, do you want to succeed? And I've never met a student that said no to that question. The question is, what is success?
There you go.
And so is it money? Is it fame? Is it the ability to abstain from failure? And one of the things that we begin to see is, well, how do we get there? What is that big dream, and how do we get to where you want to be? And so when you create a roadmap for a kid, I think about it this way. I like to run. I did a half marathon. If I was told, hey, I'm going to run, but there is no end line where I know I'm going to cross the line and I'm done, I'm not going to race because that's stupid. And I think a lot of times youth, when they don't have that roadmap, they don't know, they can't even dream big of where they want to go. Of course they don't want to learn because they don't think it matters. But I think if we can help them to say, if you do this, you will get here. I've never seen a kid say, I'm not going to do that.
I also believe that failure is good.
Oh, yeah.
People have to learn to fail.
You need stress.
Yeah, I mean, I evaluate people how they act when they lose, not when they win.
Yeah.
And everybody's praising Jesus or somebody, we won, and I go, how about the loser? Don't they count? It's how you act when you lose, how you act when you fail. We race bikes, you crash, you get up, you dust yourself up, you go back to win the race, you got to get back on the bike to get to that finish line. And that's the way in life,
And I'll go to say this. The youth that are incarcerated are the most resilient youth in the world because they have been stripped away from their families, they've been stripped away from their rooms, their pets, their siblings, all the things that they know that bring them comfort. And when they're in there, their whole belief in that cell is, I need to do better. I can make it out of here. I
don't disagree with anything you said, but at what age, in your opinion, if you can answer this, it's not going to help?
I don't believe there is any age. I believe that,
you think everybody can change?
I have to hold on to that hope and faith, and that I believe every single person can change. I do believe that there are hurdles, and there might be, even when you talk about people with addiction, that was my first job, it might take 7 failed relapses to get that 8th time they will succeed. It might take 10 years.
How, personally, are you willing to risk being hurt yourself again and again from somebody that you've been helping or believing in? Because even if it's not a monetary, let's say, harm they do to you, but it's an emotional. I mean, it's got to be like, you've been let down by somebody you put a lot of faith in. Yeah. And I'm sure you've done this many times with so many kids and children and people and when they fail, I mean, at what point do you go, okay, enough's enough? Because everybody around you goes, what are you, a moron? He burnt you once, he's going to do it again?
Yeah, I've been in many cases where I've worked with kids that are now in the port of Manatee because they've been rearrested. I've been with kids that have reoffended, violated their probation multiple times, and they're not failing me.
And what do you say? Have you ever been close enough to a child or a young person where, I mean, they're close. I don't know why, but this one individual you really want to see.
What about some of the first people you met? How did you fail repeatedly on this and finally got help someone, or how did it start?
I alluded to it earlier, but the first ever youth that I worked with that was part of the system was a kid that had a gun charge. He broke into a house, took a gun, brought it on a campus, and got arrested. He was actually hiding behind my job. And, our footage was there. He got in trouble. He came back 2 years later after being in and out of the system from programs, failing out of programs, detention, incarceration. And he came to us, and the first day I met him, I said, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he said, "Man, I'm back and drop you." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I just left, and I turned my back on him, and he dropped me. And that was actually the journey. And I didn't get to share this part in the TED Talk, but I remember when he was there, and he was standing over me after he just dropped me. He knew he messed
me, for
up.
old guy, what do you mean dropped you?
Like, he picked me up and slammed me to the ground. It was...
In a very violent way.
Yeah, it was great. And so when that happened, he looked at me, and honestly, I saw a kid. And I remember when I wrestled my brother, and the first time I ever took my brother down, and I was like, I did it. And I was so happy. And then he realized, a lot of the kids that I've been working with were out there, and they were kind of swarming in on him. And I pulled him in. I said, "You need to pick me up and apologize, or these kids are going to jump you, man." So he does it, and he just runs away. This tough kid runs away. And he came back the next day, and his tail was tucked between his legs, and he seemed to have a lot of shame. And it was in that moment I knew this kid is not a bad kid. This kid is actually a good kid. He just doesn't know how to control some of that stuff inside of him. So I started to work with him. I mentored him. We met one-on-one, and he cursed me out so many times. It was awesome, man. I didn't know if I was going to get a good conversation out of him. I didn't know if he was, listening to anything I said. And after a while, I started realizing that the behavior towards me was less aggressive and more familial. And I remember one time we just had that conversation, and he just said, I would have been dead if it wasn't for you guys. He had contemplated taking his life. He had contemplated just dying in the system. And I remember the first moment I met his probation officer, and both of them said, I thought he was either going to die or that he was going to spend the rest of his life in the system. And so when you start off with a success story like that, it doesn't matter how many times you failed, because if I can just help that one kid, that's all that matters.
Then it's worked out. Yeah.
Since that kid that you turned your back on, and I hoped, have you had to defend yourself against one of your kids?
Even then I didn't feel like I had to defend myself. I think he was...
Let me say,
but I understand what you're saying. And so, I've never felt one moment like I was fearful of my...
Well, I will tell, and I think I know why, because you don't express intimidation or threat. In the wild, when you meet a wild animal, if you just stare at them, they're going to take it as a threat. When what you're talking about, you're not providing a threat to them. You're saying, I'm your friend.
I try to be a non-threatening presence. Right. I don't raise my voice ever. Right. And one of the things that I tend to recognize is they're part of a system where, you're right, if someone looks at you, if someone steps on your shoe, if someone hits you or throws something at you, I've seen it happen all the time. Immediate skirmish. It is a fight. But one of the things that I tend to see in these kids is, I've worked with people who've taken life. I've worked with people who are sexual offenders. I've worked with kids that have done some of the worst things in this community, but they have that glint in their eye that says, I know that they can change. And I've seen them succeed.
Let me ask you, a pedophile, a sexual offender, there's one thing if you're a thief versus, you mentioned you got in a little trouble, because you defended somebody. Somebody that jumps in and fights and they get in big trouble is different than a guy that's a pedophile, that's different than a guy that steals, that, they have different behavior. It's
different actions,
yeah. But do you really believe there's still hope for somebody that is taking a course that's out there, done things that are unspeakable almost?
Yeah, I've worked with kids that have taken life. And I think, regardless of where you're at, people would say that's probably the worst thing you can do. And I wouldn't turn my back on those kids, because I may be the only one that has my face towards them.
Then the last thing about that, let's say they've done something very, very heinous. People want to punish. Should, in your opinion, punishing them, incarceration for a crime like that, should they be rehabbed? And how does that? And let's say in taking life, is the death penalty something that should be abolished in your opinion?
Yeah, I think retributive justice is not justice. When we try to do eye for an eye, the whole world goes blind.
Right.
And so the reality is, if they have to spend a long period of time in incarceration, then that's one thing. But I don't think we should ever make the judgment to the point to say, hey, we're going to take life.
Awesome. Carlos, you're a special guy. I can tell that. Man, if if Jesus Christ walks like you and talks like you, I'm a fan. I shouldn't say that, right? But I mean that because I hear so many people who claim to be people of faith, and what I'm saying is that what you talk about, to me anyway, is really power and positive in the ideas of people of faith. To me, people of faith don't have to tell me they're of faith. I can tell by their actions. You actually walk the walk, and it's very refreshing for me. Carlos, man, great conversation. I'm enjoying this a lot. I have a case coming up, a thing where, I think that there are people probably that have been harmed by one of the kids or children that you've dealt with, and it's hard for the parents to understand or agree with what you're trying to do. I know it's a struggle with like one of my clients, and it's the parent wants to put my client away forever if you got a chance. And what do you think about that? I mean, how do you handle that? I mean,
I think just basic empathy. Like, I would never expect a parent who lost their child to just come into the courtroom and say, hey, I forgive that person. I want to help them. And so I come from a standard of I'm here for the child, whether it is whether the crime, because I know very few people are there for these types of students, but in no way, shape, or form am I expecting that from everyone.
At what age? Again, I've asked something a little bit about this before. I'm trying to figure out if you were designing the system and it was all these beautiful things you want, at what point do you work on this? Because you're talking youth, mm-hmm. but what is a young person to you? I mean, where does that end and where does it begin, or does it ever? I mean, should we have this same kind of project for an adult?
Yeah. Preventative side, you want to start in elementary school. Me personally, I work with middle schoolers. I have kids that have committed crimes at 11, 12, and 13. Wow. And I want to work with them then because you have more time to work with that child and they're more developmentally able to think and process and say, hey, I need this adult. Where high school development, they're pushing people away. And they're like, oh, man, I'm testing the authority. I'm the authority. And so, but I think young people can go, what is it? The brain's not fully developed till 25. And so
is that what it is?
Yeah. Maybe a little older for you. But one of the things that we see is, man, I think a 21-year-old is still making boneheaded decisions. And, I don't think that a child should be held to the same extent of the law. They violate their probation by not showing up to school, And I see that a lot. And so
you were mentioning on your talk about all these people that are held accountable where they don't have the internet, where they don't have, nobody checks.
I had a kid spend 14 days in the JDC because he took a referral on his teacher's desk, made a fake referral, gave it to his friend. The friend thought it was real, went and showed it up. They said, who did this? They pointed to the kid. He got 14 days in incarceration because he got a referral by making a fake referral. And so I just think, man, I would have done that 100 times, but I don't have those same strict guidelines over me that would put me in jail for 14 days.
I've seen things recently where there's a fight at school, and all these other kids are pushing them to fight.
Yeah.
And the people that fight get in trouble, but the guys that really cause the fight seem to get away with it. I don't know how you handle
I actually
this stuff.
had that same thing happen at a local school here where there was an all-out brawl, and some of the kids got sent to an alternative school, and I'm like, oh man, one of the kids I work with is still at the other school, but he was able to go away before the police came.
Carlos, people watching may be impressed with you and your anecdotes and things like that, but they're probably going, well, Carlos is just the exception. He's one guy. But can you give people an example of success, something that shows that there is a way to have maybe not 100% success, but that is surprisingly successful?
I think the biggest success and the biggest thing that will help these youth is mentoring. And so we have seen that through one-on-one group mentoring, 1-on-5. We do it in schools and part of a mentoring program that's in the school district of Manatee County, and we've called it preventative measures. But we also find the kids that are on probation, and we mentor them within the school an hour a week. And we've noticed that these students are succeeding because they have someone in their corner. We do this also in the Juvenile Detention Center, and we do it with these kids that right when they committed the offense, we're there with them. And we're not just there with them through maybe the 14, 15 days, but maybe a couple months that they're in there. But when they get out, we're rolling with them. Like, they get released, I take them to get food. Like, we hang out, and we are trying to create this thing to say, we're not just there with you when you got arrested. We're there afterwards because we want to help you.
Hey, you use the word we. I see Carlos.
Yeah.
I know you're doing it. Who is we?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of mentors, both in the school, but also through Youth for Christ. We have mentors there. There's people in our community, different organizations that we work together. And the reality is there's a network of people who love mentoring, whether you look at Boys and Girls Club, you look at Big Brothers and Sisters of America, all these different organizations, they're believing on the one premise that if every person had an adult in their corner, they're going to succeed. There was a big thing that came out through Springtime Institute that said that many youth feel lonely. They feel on their own, and they feel like they have no trusted adults. And we saw that when a youth didn't have one or less than two trusted adults in their life, they were more likely to get arrested. They were more likely to fail school. They were more likely to live in the poverty line as an adult.
That was amazing. What do you have to tell us all? What do you have to say here as we wrap this up?
I'll just close with the same line that I used for my TEDx video, and it was, the child that is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And I know that seems a little like, why would they do that? But I'm asking to have the village that's around us, our community, rally around these youth and to help create a better society for these youth.
For me, I would go it's the county government here that needs to invest in our youth, in rehab programs, and so forth, right?
I think it's creating places and spaces for these youth to succeed, whether it's grant money to help fund and organize to have more people in this society doing what we need them to do, people mentoring individual donors, people stepping up and saying, hey, I want to step into these spaces with these kids, mentor them, help them, and maybe even support them through the long run.
I think we need to do all we can in county government, in our government, to provide the grants if we're not going to do it ourselves, or create the programs to help these kids come out of this. And so we can build a better
online,
society.
a phone number, anything?
Yeah, there's different, you can go to my individual donation, because we raise money for the programs we do, is carlos180.org.
All right, carlos180.org.
Yeah.
Got it, carlos180.org. I got it memorized. We got it. We're cool.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here, man. You're amazing. We need more people like you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on
Start having children. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
At Czaia Law, it's personal. We understand that an injury can be a dramatic, life-changing event. That's why we're here to guide you through the legal process and get you the best possible outcome. We are the voice of the community. We work hard so you don't have to make sure the people get all the money they deserve after an accident. We are the voice of the community, and we work hard to make you a winner. Our competent and bilingual staff will fight for you against the insurance companies and work diligently with providers while you focus on your recovery. There are no fees or costs unless we win your injury case. Give us a call for a free personal case review at 1-833-255-6697. At Czaia Law, it's personal because we care.